all those struggling and suffering with substance use disorder. And today is a special day because today is Thomas's birthday. So on a day that my family and I should be having cake, and I should be making my son's whatever he wanted to eat today, we're not doing that. We're struggling with a day that just reminds us that 6 years ago he was taken from us, from a fatal progressive disease that we could not get treatment for. So that's why we're doing this today. That's why I continue to do this. That's why I'm going to continue to stand in the gap for those that struggle with substance use disorder and for their families. Because when the family gets better, everybody gets better. And tonight, my very special guest is my friend Claudia Ragni, who has dedicated your whole life to this field. And I applaud you for that because you are one of the most outstanding leaders in the field, and you do the best work around.
Thank you. And your $50 is in the mail. Thank you.
And you know that's a lie, because I would charge you a lot more than that.
That's true. That's true.
So, why do you do what you do? I'm going to ask you that before we even talk about what we're going to...
It's interesting. I was raised in an alcoholic household.
Mm-hmm.
My father was a raging alcoholic. At the end of his drinking, he was drinking 4 quarts of scotch a day. He lost the use of, or the control of his bladder and his bowels. But for the fact that he still was functioning in a job, because his boss was a drunk and they drank together, he would have been a Barry bum. I mean, He was that bad a drinker. And actually, he got sober 1970 in the month of April. So we're coming up on, his 48th anniversary.
Wow.
Of getting sober. But anyway, back then we were dumb. We didn't know.
Yeah.
I was 18 years old, and my mother finally gave him an ultimatum that I'm leaving and I'm taking the kids. And he went out for 5 days, and he locked himself in the Meadowbrook Motel with several cases of scotch and tried to drink himself to death. And it didn't work.
Wow.
So then he came home and he says, okay, I'll stop drinking. But you better do this and you better do that, like alcoholics do.
Yes.
They're pointing the finger. And he stopped drinking, and he had full-blown DTs.
Okay.
Delirium tremens. He had hallucinations, auditory and visual hallucinations. He had to shake so bad the bed was shaking across the room, we would push it back across the room. So we sat in shifts with him because he was seizures, convulsions, the full-blown DTs for 5 days. We were dumb. We had no idea he could die.
Yeah.
So I was like, whoa. We called the only thing we knew about was Alcoholics Anonymous. So we in the phone book, and some guys from AA came and talked to him. And the gentleman who became his sponsor, an angel named Frank Meskel, took him to a meeting when he came from, through his withdrawal, took him to a meeting every day for probably the first 5 years of my father's sobriety. Now, I was, first of all, as an 18-year-old seeing this, I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe alcohol is doing this to a human body.
Right.
So that was intense.
And you saw the worst of the worst.
The worst of the worst. Plus, I also grew up with just all the ugliness that alcoholism brings into a family. And then I watched his journey in AA, and I was like, whoa, this is crazy. So I started going to open AA meetings with my dad. Sunday night, West Hempstead AA meeting. And I became completely enraptured with Alcoholics Anonymous. I was like, oh my God, I want what they have. But I'm not willing to do what I got to do to earn my seat in the rooms, I wasn't willing to drink myself into alcoholism. Yeah. And then my dad's sponsor at one point said to me, he goes, the 12 steps are a divinely inspired way to live your life.
Yes.
He said, you don't have to be an alcoholic to live your life according to the 12 steps. So I just kind of morphed into that whole lifestyle. When my dad got sober, he started a business, because at that point he did lose his job. He started a business. I went to work for him. I was out of high school. And all his AA buddies would hang out, guys who didn't have jobs. And what I would do in between doing my job duties, I would call, who needs their house painted? Who needs this, to give these guys that had no work, that had lost their jobs due to alcoholism,
Wow.
to try and find who needed a house painted, who needed a fence painted, who needed something power washed, just to get these guys, and it was
Moving.
great. So, exactly. So that's kind of what started it. Then I started volunteering for the Long Island Council on Alcoholism, and I started that somewhere probably about 1973.
Okay.
And I've always volunteered there, but I didn't get into this field formally until 1983. And I just fell in love with the field. I fell in love with the field. I worked in a retail department store for 6 months of my life when I was young. And I realized that I hated people. I hated the general public. I have never, in the 40-odd years I've been doing this, I have never met an addict or an alcoholic I didn't love. They're amazing people.
No, they
They're
are
amazing people
They're just
with a
sick.
disease. They're
Yes,
sick. These
they're
are
sick.
really good people that need to get well. They're not bad people looking to get good.
Yes.
They're really good people.
Yeah.
And I've never met one that I didn't absolutely love. Yeah, they're frustrating. And
Extremely. And they're hurtful.
And they're hurtful and they're manipulative.
They do a lot of things in the height of their, disease, as did my son. And you've heard me say, I miss Thomas every second of every day. Thomas, high on drugs, was a mean, manipulative son of a gun. And I don't miss him. And and he knows that, because he didn't want to be that person either. But it's the disease that drives, and the insidiousness of the want of their bodies and their brain that demand that they do that.
And the sad part is our society stigmatizes addicts.
Yes.
Okay.
That it's a moral failing.
That it's a moral failure, it's a character defect, it's a matter of willpower. I still see this today with all the education that's out there, I still see it in the families of patients that come into treatment. We just admitted a woman into our IOP program.
IOP stands for intensive
outpatient.
So they don't sleep at your facility, they just come in for 3-4 hours
A day,
Yeah.
3 to 5 days a week. This woman was taken to a hospital on Long Island for acute intoxication by her family. She was left in the ER for 5 days to detox, because that's what happens. It's like, we don't want to deal with the addicts, we don't want to deal with the alcoholics, so we're going to just throw them in the corner and just hope they don't yell too much. And that's not okay.
That's not okay.
Because, first of all, what people don't realize is 80% of addicts and alcoholics are employed, tax-paying, functioning people.
Yes.
But we say drug addict and we think unemployed, disenfranchised, heroin addict, dirty, smelly.
Yes.
That's not
Under
the way
a
it
bridge.
is. Yes.
Right.
And that's not the way it is. 80%.
No. Yeah.
So,
And with the heroin opiate epidemic, it's your high school senior star football player.
Right.
And cheerleader.
Yeah. And I tell you, it's an interesting thing, because you see these high functioning kids, the honor roll, the cheerleader, the sports star. The denial of the family is so high.
Yes.
That my kid can't be doing drugs. My kid absolutely cannot be doing
because
drugs.
Look at what they're doing.
Right.
Look
so
at
by
what
the
they're
time
achieving.
the kid gets into treatment, they're deep in.
They're very deep in.
And it's frightening. And the parents' denial is so solid that we work very intensively with the families, because if the families don't get better, the addict isn't going to get better. It's a family disease, as you know. It tears families apart.
Tears them apart.
And if we don't help the family, the patient doesn't get better.
That's why I do what I do.
Yeah.
So, it's frustrating too to deal with the family. So, the other day talking to someone, and the poor mom, you're so hurt. I know. Because your loved one, and in her case, her son, is saying the meanest, nastiest things. And I have to bring her back to, do we know that he's sick? Do you know that he's struggling with some mental health issues and substance use. So we know that he's sick. So why are you paying attention to that? and giving parents and saying, you can hang up the phone on them when they're talking to you like that.
Because that's not okay.
It's not okay. And who says that you can't hang up the phone?
That's right.
But it's just bringing just awareness like that. Something as simple as that.
Something as simple as
because mom and dad are scared to death of losing that connection.
That's true. And also, what addicts and alcoholics are extraordinarily good at doing is taking hostages.
Yes.
And that's what they do to their family. They take them hostage. If you don't do this for me, I'm going to commit suicide.
Yes. I'm going to kill myself.
I'm going to kill myself.
Yep.
If you don't do that for me,
I'm leaving.
Yeah. And they take hostages.
Yeah.
And that's frightening. When
Extremely.
a loved one takes you, hostage, you don't know if they're real because, God forbid, what if they do something? How am I going to live with myself?
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So it's just such a crazy disease. Such a crazy disease.
And right now, because of the opiate crisis, the media, we're focusing on opiates, but we need to remember, first of all,
alcohol's still a number one killer.
Still number one killer. 64,000 people died in 2017 from opiates, but 88,000 died from alcohol. So we can't forget that alcohol is a bigger killer than opiates are. It's just what we're seeing is opiates, the progression is so rapid.
Yes.
So
it can be a few months.
A few months, exactly.
Yeah.
Where the progression of alcoholism typically will take years, sometimes decades.
Yeah.
So but it's so stark with opiates that we're focusing on the opiates.
Yeah. And that's not okay.
It's not okay.
Because kids don't start with opiates.
They don't. They start with alcohol or pot.
They start with alcohol or pot. And or even cigarettes.
Well,
cigarettes can light
too,
up.
Absolutely.
We have to acknowledge that there are gateway drugs. I don't care what anybody reads. I don't care.
There are gateway drugs.
Something is lighting up, especially in a young person, a teenager, because I've learned this from our friend Kim Lauby. If kids or if a person doesn't start as a teenager, the risk factor goes down
way down
90%.
90%. If you wait till after the age of 25, it's remarkable.
It's remarkable.
It's remarkable.
So we can say that addiction is an adolescent disease. We can say that.
If you don't, think about if you put mood-altering, mind-altering drugs, this is common sense, into a developing brain, the brain is going to develop needing mood-altering, mind-altering substances.
Yes.
It's that simple.
It's that simple.
So I'm not a fan of giving any psychotropics, mood-altering or mind-altering.
To a child.
To a child. I think it's dangerous.
Which is interesting. So I always ask, just in my own journey, especially with kids that are heroin or opiate users, did your child have ADHD? And I can tell you that probably 95% of people, and I've talked to thousands of people, had ADHD and had some kind of Adderall, Ritalin, or anything like that during their upbringing.
I'm glad you brought it up. I was a little nervous because I'm not a doctor. I don't pretend to be a doctor.
I'm not a
but
doctor either.
Statistically, anecdotally, you're 100% right.
I just found from my own self. So my son had ADHD, and I never wanted to put him on medicine, and we did that for a very short period of time. And did that have something to do with it? Could have been, hereditary. It could have been his genetics. It could have been a lot of things. But when I go back and I just do my own little, census, that's what I come up with. So ADHD is a real live disease. And if your child really needs it, absolutely. But in the age in education where we remove art, music, recess, gym, all of those things, especially from a 6-year-old, they're not ADHD. They're 6 years old.
They're 6 years old, and they have energy.
And they have a lot of energy. Yeah. And they need to explore what calms their soul.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And sadly, when our society does budget cuts, the government looks at budget cuts, they always pull the money from the most vulnerable populations that don't really fight back. Children, elderly, social services.
Yes.
That's what they pull from. When I was a kid, and I went to school in the 50s and 60s, we had, as you said, we had art programs, we had music programs, we had, shop programs, we had gym. We had gym 3 times a week.
3 times a week you had gym.
Like,
And
nobody
every
has gym
day-
anymore.
Every day you went out to...
You went outside and played.
You went outside and played.
Correct.
And you also got recess.
And then after
Another
school,
recess.
we had parks to play in.
Yes.
Now, because of litigious reasons, most of the parks are closed down, or if the parks are open, they're just areas of grass.
Yes.
Like when I was a kid and I went to the park that was down the block from my house, they had basketballs there. They had softballs and bats and stilts, because I used to love stilt racing.
They had that room that was locked, and
Right.
you could go and you could borrow.
That's right, whatever
you
you
could borrow
wanted.
a kickball. You could borrow.
And we worked off our energy.
Yes.
I know if I were a child today, I would be on ADHD medication. I'm so ADHD. However, I don't see it as a liability. I see it as an asset. I'm a phenomenal multitasker.
Yes.
Things don't rattle me. Things can come at me from 16 directions. It doesn't rattle me. I think these are assets. The liability is if I get up to
can't-
go over there, I'm going to forget why I got up to go over there. But that's okay.
That's okay.
okay.
You'll remember.
I'll remember eventually.
At some point in
That's
time.
right. So I think just as a whole, I think we're always, this whole, pharmaceutically, socially, we're always looking for the magic bullet.
Yes.
Whether it's to get rid of a headache, to get rid of bad behavior in a kid, whether it's to get rid of body odor, whatever it is, we're looking for this magic bullet. And I think we've taught our children that if you're feeling sad, there's going to be something out there, that the way to do it is ingest something
Yes.
and make it go away.
Instead of sitting through it.
And sitting through it, self-soothe.
It's okay to be sad.
It's okay to be sad.
Today is not a great day for me.
No.
But but it's not a great day for me because I shouldn't say it that way, because it's one of my 3 greatest days of my life.
Yeah.
And
Thomas's birthday.
Yeah. And what a great day and what great memories I have. But then I have the other stark that hits me in the eye, that what would he be doing at 28 years old? Would he be engaged? Would he be married?
Yeah.
Would he have a child? Where would he be and what would he be doing? And that's what's been robbed from me. So, it's a bittersweet day, but we'll stand always in, tomorrow's never promised. So we have to all remember that.
That's true. Not for
Yeah.
any of us.
Not for any of us.
Not for any of us.
No.
And the sad part with addiction and these kids that are using drugs to kill these feelings that they haven't been taught how to deal with. They just haven't been taught
how to cope.
Correct. Is they may not be feeling the uncomfortable feelings, but that they're not experiencing the joy.
No, they aren't experiencing anything.
Yeah, they're not really
Quite
happy.
honestly.
They're not happy. They don't feel joy. They don't. It's like it's.
It's a vacuum.
Yeah, it's a vacuum, and they're frightened to feel anything.
It's a vacuum, and their bodies demand, and I can't even stress that enough, especially with heroin and opiates, demand. Where am I getting my next fix? Where am I getting them? And everything, the day revolves around that.
Well, the reason opiate addiction is different than any other, because opiates, it's the only drug that's natural to the human body. Our body makes 6 natural opiates. All right, and these opiates that are, but the most common one that people know of is endorphins, and then there's 5 other ones. So these natural opiates regulate our sleep cycle, regulates our hunger cycle, regulates our moods, it regulates pain, it regulates a ton of bodily functions. The minute I start ingesting external opiates on a regular basis, my natural or endogenous opiate system slows down and eventually shuts down. So now my body is no longer producing natural opiates because it's getting everything it needs.
That's why they're
externally.
creatures of the night.
Correct. So now we put the patient into detox. They come out, or rehab, or whatever. Their body, so we take away the heroin, we take away the Roxys, the Oxys. The body doesn't immediately start manufacturing the natural opiates. So literally, the brain is screaming for the opiate because it needs it to function at a baseline level. That's why opiate addicts relapse so much.
Oh, okay.
That's why it's this chronic relapsing pattern, because it's not being treated. We're not treating opiate addiction the way it needs to be treated because the funding isn't there. When I entered this field in it doesn't matter. Opiate addicts all went into therapeutic communities, which meant you went there, you were detoxed, and you lived there for 18 months. So their body was back to a baseline normal before they were out.
Discharged.
Now, we're lucky if we can get them inpatient for 30 days.
Yeah.
So they come out, but their body is still screaming for these opiates. They're because they have no natural opiates, they're hypersensitive to any kind of pain.
Yes, they are.
Any kind of uncomfortability. They're hypersensitive to depression, anxiety, all the things that would trigger them to use again. So we really struggled as an outpatient program helping heroin addicts. We were really pulling our hair out until we found Vivitrol. Vivitrol is an injectable.
So now we can talk about that because now I got you to really, and that's.
It's an injectable naltrexone. It's the same thing as Narcan.
Yes.
It's the same molecule, except instead of being short-acting, it's long-acting.
Okay.
And it lasts 30 days, but we typically give the shot at about 25 days.
Okay.
And what this does, all my patients say this that are on it, it stops the constant shattering in the brain.
Because I need this.
I need this. I need this. I need
yeah.
this. I need this. I need this. It calms it right down because it
replaces what it needs.
It's not an opiate, it's an antagonist, but it kind of covers those opiate receptors.
Okay.
And it kind of like fakes the brain and the body into
thinking it has
right.
it.
And at the same time, it's also like rebooting the brain chemistry. And the other thing we tell addicts in early recovery is work out, because the more you exercise, the faster your body is going to come back to normal.
Yeah. Which is so I know this, that, Thomas complained in a few places that because they tell them, you're not going to work out. You're not working out. They take that away from them.
That's crazy.
It's crazy, right?
It's crazy. You have to take an opiate addict and get them to exercise.
Right. He used to do push-ups, like 100 push-ups, and he would do that in the privacy. And he's like, I have to do something. Because, all these, unfortunately, the biggest population that's addicted right now to heroin and opiates are kids, or young people. Yeah. They need to move too.
Need to move. Although I'll tell you an interesting statistic to heroin is kids. But when you look at opiate painkillers, you're looking at 45-year-old white male.
Yes.
Have the highest overdose rates
they do.
For prescription pills.
And they're dying quietly in their beds
yes.
and being attributed to heart attacks.
Yeah. So we need to take a look at that too. We need to take a look at Xanax and how that's being prescribed. We're seeing doctors prescribing enormous amounts of Xanax, which is also killing. We just lost a girl on Long Island last week due to Xanax.
Yeah.
And I'm sure more. That's just one that I knew.
Right.
I'm sure there's plenty more.
So that's benzodiazepine.
Benzodiazepine.
So Valium.
Valium, Ativan, Librium, Cerax. Xanax is the one.
Klonopin too.
Klonopin also, yeah. Xanax is the one people tend to use because it's strong and it's very fast acting. It's boom, it's powerful. And
that's for anxiety.
Yeah. Actually, Xanax was designed for panic. It's designed, if you're in a massive panic attack, take it and it'll bring you right out.
Okay.
It's really not indicated for ongoing anxiety because it acts fast and wears off fast.
Okay.
So if you have ongoing anxiety, a long-acting benzo like a Klonopin would be more appropriate. But doctors get their information typically from drug reps.
Ooh.
Drug reps work on commission.
Yes.
That's why we got into this mess, because, the drug reps.
Information.
Yeah, the drug reps
and
of
a lot
Purdue
of promises.
Pharmaceutical
And
saying,
a lot of promises.
and a lot of promises.
And a lot of bonuses.
Yeah, well, a lot of bonuses too.
A lot of dirty money
Yeah.
happened there.
And drug reps saying that this is a non-addictive painkiller for OxyContin. And that's where we got into this mess.
Dr. Kolodny does a great
Yes, he does.
presentation on that, showing way back in the 90s.
That's right.
Yeah. So this has been coming. It's a long coming storm.
Long coming. And
we haven't even seen the height, to me, in my humble opinion, because now we're going to be seeing the babies that are born dependent on.
And what are they going to be like in 20 years? We don't really know.
We don't really know, but we have to raise them. So, with all their health issues, being born to unfortunate parents that are struggling with substance use, so they're probably on Medicaid. Yeah. So it's every taxpayer that's gonna raise this baby, right. Never mind with all their health issues, and then we do. I mean, they're certainly going to have a high propensity for substance use disorder.
That's right. And
never mind the extreme pain that they're in when they're born dependent.
That breaks my heart. I called around to
breaks my heart.
The local hospitals and asking if any of the hospitals would allow volunteer for me to rock these babies. I mean, I can't even, because they're left in the little scripts, it's screaming. These poor babies. And
screaming
the bottom line,
for an opiate.
Screaming for an opiate. And they're not, these poor little babies aren't titrated down.
Right.
The way the adults are. And the adults keep using because they can't tolerate the pain of withdrawal. And that's what breaks my heart. Many years ago, when
you're going to have to hold that, because we're going to be right back after this message.
My age is 18 years old and my name is Evan.
My name is Sean and I'm 19 years old.
My name is Justin, I'm 16.
My name is Angelica, I'm 18 years old.
Marijuana, and I was 13 years old.
Marijuana, and my age was 13.
The first drug I ever tried was marijuana, and I was 12 years old.
It was marijuana and I was 11 years old.
Yes, and that escalated to promethazine, lean.
I began to take pills like Xanax, Percocets.
I began using other substances such as pills and alcohol.
I then went on to cocaine and pills and quickly progressed to heroin. I was 13 years old when I first started using heroin. I had aspirations of going to an Ivy League school, and that quickly, within a year or two, changed. I stopped going to my classes, I stopped going to school altogether eventually. All my friends were kind of just dropping me.
I started getting in trouble in school, eventually kicked out. I got in trouble with the law a lot.
I wasn't really hanging out with a lot of sober people, just people that use. I overdosed at 15. I've been at Outreach for 5 months. Outreach honestly really helps you. It shows that you're honestly worth something. And it's possible to become sober if you put in progress. But it's not just gonna be handed to you, you really have to want to change. Inpatient, you can't just leave. You stay here and you have to deal with it. That's what I feel like a lot of kids need.
In a long-term facility, the counselors get to know the resident better, and they get to actually work with them more than in a short-term 28-day facility. And it really gives kids a chance to work on themselves rather than being rushed through a program, just to be thrown back into life, going back into the same old bad habits that they were doing before.
Coming in here, I couldn't believe how long I would have to be here, but after a couple months, talking to counselors, I kind of came to the realization that I need a lot of time and work to repair everything I've done.
The things that we get taught here, it really does help you in life, and it gives you a different perspective. It's very important for a kid to have a family involvement in treatment so they don't think they're alone in this. We communicate on a better basis than how we used to. We understand each other more, and that was from the help of Outreach.
They come every Wednesday night for support group. They come to a group every other week.
They come to peer support group. to discuss their problems also, my relationship honestly has got a lot better. Because I remember my mom used to never want to say anything to me because she would be scared of my reaction. I'm starting to realize in here, like, I really have to take advantage of the fact that I have her still.
When I was about 14 is when my parents realized that I had several different problems, such as behavioral issues, and the behavioral issues kind of stemmed from my drug use. I began caring less about myself and others. Outreach has really made me realize how important family is. If I was out of state in a program where my parents were not involved, I would have never been able to strengthen my relationship with them. My father told me that I've inspired him to make changes in his life, and that meant a lot to me. I've never heard my dad be inspired by something before, and I was just proud that it was me.
Welcome back to Resolutions for Recovery. And my friend Claudia Ragni is here. And we're talking, you're going to tell me about Mother Hale.
Mother Hale. Many, many, many years ago, when heroin was primarily in the poorer sections of Manhattan, and the babies that were born addicted to heroin.
Well, dependent. We should say dependent.
Well, you're right. You're absolutely
They're
right.
dependent.
That's the correct language. They were born dependent on heroin. And she opened up Hale House. Well, she actually opened her home and brought in these babies and did nothing but rock them. And she had volunteers that did nothing but hold these babies and rock them. And then someone donated to her a house, and it became Hale House. And that's what she did. She was this beautiful woman who just wanted to take care of...
Just an angel.
Yeah, she was an angel.
Took care of the babies.
Yeah, Mother Hale. And that's what we did back in the day for the heroin. And we should be doing that now.
We should be, but in today's society now, so we have babies that their parents could have died due to overdose. Yeah. So they're orphans, or grandparents are raising them.
Yeah. And
it's very unfortunate that, they can't retire, they can't, this is not something that is normal, right? Tragedies do happen, but this is happening on an everyday occurrence now, and these kids are going to be high risk for a lot of behaviors.
A lot of behavior problems, a lot of not just addiction, but a lot of other social problems.
A lot of other social problems.
And I don't understand.
Especially if mom and dad are still active and get to, interact somewhat, it's just total chaos again. It's just that total chaos. And it's not fair. It's just not fair.
It's not fair. But we need to look at this problem more comprehensively. It's a social condition.
It is a societal condition.
Right. It's medical, it's spiritual, it's social. We need to take a look at this. What surprises me is that the social work curriculum for your local social work college, schools, don't have mandated classes on addiction. And yet statistically, all addiction classes are electives. Yet statistically, 75% of people who present to a therapist for help, there is addiction somewhere in their family, whether it was parent, spouse, or child. And yet no social work school has mandated courses in addiction.
That's insane.
Of course it's insane.
It's funny, I spoke a few weeks ago, and people in the audience, they say, well, society has to. So I stopped and I said, who is society? We're society. What are you prepared to do? Because it's a community change that has to happen. It's the whole community has to shift how we do business.
That's right.
That's right. You need to watch out for your neighbor's kids.
You need to watch out.
You need to stand for and you need to come together with the school district, with everyone in your community that are adults that have some kind of influence on a child's life.
It does take a village.
It does take a village, but you all need to be walking the same direction. Parents today, and I hear it from school administrators, they're afraid for their job. They're afraid on many levels, because in the day that I know that I grew up, if my parents got called, there wasn't three sides to the story.
Oh no, there was the school side.
There was the school side and your debt.
That's it. It was that simple.
It was that simple.
It was that simple.
I don't care what happened. You never have a reason to be disrespectful.
That's right.
Period. End of conversation.
And if my parents got a phone call from Mrs. Flanagan 4 blocks away, and Mrs. Flanagan tells my mother that I saw Claudia doing such and such, I was in trouble. There was no, but all that's gone now.
It's all gone because everyone, it's
always someone else's fault.
It's just this, the blinders are on.
Yeah.
I'm staying in my lane. I'm never going to look.
It's not my kid. It's
Right.
not me. You know, my kids don't lie. All kids lie.
All kids lie.
All kids lie. And as I tell everybody, you know, this is one of my mottos in life. When you're pointing the finger at someone else, there's always 3 fingers pointing back at you.
Yeah.
And I think as a society, we need to look at that. You know, it's not the government's fault. You know, what's my part in it?
And it's
It's a societal
and if you know,
issue.
but everybody can do their part.
Yes, they can.
To change their area.
That's right.
No, we don't have to change. You know, people can say, "Well, you need to stop the drugs from coming into this country. We need to do a lot of things." But what am I capable of doing? I'm capable of being in my community and
That's right.
making changes right here.
That's right.
What can I do today to make that change? Which is being as open as saying, yeah, my child could have done that. Instead of asking for videotape of my child actually doing that.
Right. Prove it.
Prove it.
Yeah.
Prove it. And kids know, you can't touch me. You can't touch me. You can't reprimand me. You can't look at me because I'll have your job. When did that happen?
I don't know. I used to be afraid of teachers.
Yes.
You know, I was afraid of authority. I was afraid of cops. I was afraid of authority.
Yes.
I don't know if it was afraid or respect.
You
but
respected it.
Yeah,
You respected it.
Yeah. And that's gone. And that's very, very sad.
And that's very,
And that's
very
one
sad.
of the things that we need to do in treatment. With young people, we need to teach them respect. Like at KPC, we have rules on how you have to dress.
Yes.
You know, it's not okay.
Very important.
Absolutely.
At St. Christopher's upstate, so, you know, they are given, if they don't come in with one, a button-down collared shirt.
Yeah.
And when they go to dinner,
They have to wear
they wear
shirt.
they wear that. They stand in silence outside the dining hall, and then they are reminded that you need to be thankful that you are given a meal today. But they are also taught you are a person worthy of love and respect.
That's right.
Because how can I respect you when I don't respect myself? And most
what it
people
boils down
struggling
to.
with disease hate themselves.
Hate themselves. Yeah.
They hate themselves. They don't. I know for my son, he hated what he was doing because when he was, you know, sober, he was so embarrassed of the behavior that he had when he was high. And he didn't have the heart to hurt us without the use of drugs and alcohol. That was not him. That was not his spirit.
Patients come in, they all
They're broken.
they're very broken, but such deep shame
Yes.
and remorse and guilt. It's just that they are worthless. They
Yes.
are without value.
Yes.
So, you know, my philosophy is everyone has inherent value and we need to lift you up,
Yes.
you know. And, you know, my goal in life is to do whatever I can to help every addict see them as the beautiful person that I see.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
Because they
Yeah.
are amazing. They are absolutely amazing.
And our friend Jim
people.
Cusick writing the book "Trouble
Yes.
Is the Gift."
Trouble is a gift. Yes, it is.
So yeah. Addiction. If you can get past that, you can do anything you want in the world.
When I see patients, and I'll tell them, I've been known to tell them, your addiction is a gift. And they look at me like, oh, yeah. And I go, no, it is a gift. And in my experience, my life experience and my work in this field, people who are addicted, who find recovery through AA, NA, one of the self-help modalities, and the 12 steps, are much happier, much more comfortable inside their own skin, much more serene, are able to deal with life on life's terms, much better than someone who never became an addict. So it's a gift. You learn
It can
to-
be a gift.
Yeah.
Anything can be a gift.
Anything can be a gift.
You have to find, there's
The
two
good
ways.
in it.
There's always two ways of looking at something, right? So you can look at it. You have a choice every morning too.
That's right.
Things not always going to go your way, but that doesn't
situation-
mean that a day isn't a good day.
That's right. Situation changes by how you look at it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's a gift in everything that it is.
Right.
So Vivitrol.
Vivitrol. Okay.
So how long can someone comfortably or stay on it without any kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Any kind of
Problems, complications.
Complications.
You could stay on it lifelong.
You
there's no
can.
reason. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It is really an incredibly benign drug.
Okay.
As we've heard in the papers with the overdoses with fentanyl, sometimes EMS workers have to give 5, 6, 7 shots of Narcan.
I know.
You can't overdose on it. You can't
Okay.
do too much of it. It's a very benign medication. Ideally, I think 12 to 18 months is the ideal time frame. You don't really want to become psychologically dependent on this is what's keeping me clean and sober.
Right.
It is a tool. It's a medication to help you bridge from active use into sustained recovery.
Okay.
That's the way I view Vivitrol. It's very safe. It's very benign. It's the same, as I said, as Narcan.
So in your program,
Yes.
do you have to also be, so if I get a shot of Vivitrol, do I have to be engaged in?
Yes, you do.
I will.
I am not because there is no magic bullet.
There is not one magic bullet. You have to do all the
medication, and even the manufacturers of Vivitrol are very clear. This medication is intended to be used in conjunction with psychosocial addiction treatment.
Right.
So it is not meant to be used alone, because if it's a brain disease,
Right.
all right, and the use of drugs changes the plasticity of the brain. That means the way the brain functions. So the medication isn't going to put the plasticity of the brain back to the way it was. So part of what the therapy does, it helps rewire the brain,
Finds
rehabituate new habits,
pathways.
new pathways. That's what the therapy does. Because if I don't find healthy, productive outlets from my rage, my anger, my anxiety, my depression, it's going to come out somewhere else. Vivitrol doesn't make that go away.
And all those things you just named is life.
That's life. Life on life's terms.
Right.
And as an addict, what we do is we feel one of those feelings, we take a drug or a drink. Vivitrol, you're going to feel the feelings now because you take the drug away. Now what are you going to do? So it's very important to be in treatment. And I have seen miracles, absolute miracles. As I was saying earlier, when I came into this field, heroin addicts, opiate addicts went into treatment for 12 to 18 months. Now we're lucky we can get 30 days. So I look at...
that is a long time.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
So I look at Vivitrol as the invisible brick and mortar
Around.
the patient that helps get them. When I've gotten into a few little spirited discussions about with anti-Vivitrol people who, I didn't need Vivitrol. I'm a recovering heroin addict. I got sober 30 years ago. And then I'll say, well, did you go to treatment? Yeah, where'd you go? I went to Topic House, which was a great little TC in Nassau County in Plainview. I went to Topic House. How long were you there? Well, I was there 17 months. Of course you were.
Yeah.
Because that's what you need. But
Right.
if you had been at Topic House for 1 month and then you were sent home, would you have used? Definitely.
Right.
Well, there you have it. That's why we need Vivitrol, because our system will not fund 18 months of treatment. I guess about 15 years ago, they closed down Topic House. They closed down Plainview Rehab. They've closed down...
Too many.
Too many.
Too many
We don't
places.
have bed. Now we're in the middle of of another opiate epidemic, and we don't have the beds or the funds or the system in place to deal with it on an inpatient basis. So that's why medication is so important.
And medicine-assisted treatment, listen, if that's the route that gets you anything's better than shooting heroin.
That's true.
So, whether it's Vivitrol, Suboxone, Methadone, whatever treatment plan your
Whatever.
doctors come up with, you
Better
have to
than dead.
embrace it. Better than dead.
It's better than dead.
Yes.
As I said, was telling
And
you
there's
earlier.
hope. There's hope there.
That's right.
There's hope for a rebuilding of your life and your family's life.
When I started going to open AA meetings in 1970, one of the things I found really startling was how many suicides there were in early recovery. It was really disturbing. And of
Yeah.
course, as a kid, young adult, I had this fear, oh my God, is my father going to commit suicide? And what's this? And I had become attached to a lot of the people in the rooms, and oh my God, because there were a lot of suicides. And then in 1988, Prozac came out. And people in the rooms, anyone who was prescribed Prozac was stigmatized, just like they're stigmatized now. If they take Suboxone or Methadone or Vivitrol, they were stigmatized. A drug is a drug is a drug, and you can't take Prozac. Yet it finally got accepted, and we saw suicide rate drop dramatically in early recovery. So, now in the rooms of self-help, there is still a little stigma when it comes to medication, but I do think that's going to change with time as people realize in recovery that,
The old timers don't see it that way.
don't.
They don't embrace that. And that's unfortunate because they're supposed to be there to help that person on their,
But the old timers,
They welcome people. If you went to an AA meeting and you were drunk, they would welcome you.
Yes,
So, there really is no difference.
I know.
It's not a crutch. It's a necessity.
It's a necessity. But it typically, in my experience, it takes like a generation, about 20 years, to get these shifts in attitudes. So I guess Suboxone's been out about 15 years now. Vivitrol's been out about 10 years. So maybe another 10 years and we'll see a little bit of a shift,
Do you prefer either one of them?
I prefer Vivitrol. I think Suboxone's an excellent medication for an extended detox.
Okay.
Okay, because Vivitrol is a full antagonist, which means it doesn't let any opiates get onto the receptors. All right. What Suboxone is a partial agonist, which means there's opiates.
Okay.
All right. So it's a partial agonist opiate. The good thing is it allows your body to start regenerating natural opiates, not at the same rate as if you were completely clean, but it allows your body to start regenerating its endogenous opiate system while keeping the cravings at bay.
Okay.
The problem that I found is it is an opiate. It's highly abusable. It has street credibility, which means they can trade their Suboxone for drugs on the street.
Yeah.
It's every day.
Yeah.
So if I want to get high this weekend, I just don't take my Suboxone. I get high. Then when I start to Jones after getting high, I can go back on my Suboxone. So,
but they are making a shot for Suboxone.
They are making for a shot, and we'll see how that works. I don't know. The jury's out on that. We had somebody in our hot pod program that had a buprenorphine implant that he'd got out in Michigan, and I had never heard of it. And what was very interesting is every time in group when he
buprenorphine is Suboxone.
It's Suboxone, yes. That's the generic name. Suboxone is buprenorphine, and naloxone and this was just pure buprenorphine implant. But every time things in group got a little heavy, he would start rubbing the implant, almost like he was trying to get more medication out of it. I just found it very interesting. So we'll see.
Because what I've read is with the implant that people were digging them out of their skins.
They will do that.
Yeah.
Because if someone wants to get high, they want to get high.
They want to get high.
Yeah.
Right. And again, when anything is not used in conjunction with doing the really tough work,
that's it.
Which is looking inside of you.
That's right.
Why did I decide to do this? There's typically trauma, or, for my son, we lost all 3 grandparents, and my ex-husband and I got divorced within 3 years.
That's huge for children.
That was a lot of loss. A lot of loss.
I don't want to say 100%, but 90% of the patients that come in, there's some kind of trauma, pretty significant.
Yeah.
You know, some is horrific,
Right.
like incest, rape, you know,
Yes.
being terrorized, and some, you know, to the other spectrum, but it was traumatizing for them. So
Who can
define
You can't define
what a trauma is for someone?
You really can't.
Because we've got the addiction, but then we've got the underlying
Reason.
feelings
Yeah.
that are what I call the kerosene on the fire that are fueling the addiction. The addiction is a brain disease.
Right.
But then we've got the feelings, and how intense is the trauma that they have to keep zoning out. So how intense is that that's fueling the addiction? So if you don't deal with this backwash,
Yeah.
the addiction isn't going to go away.
And there's many times mental health issues.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
You know, I've spoken to many a patient, and one young man told me how much cocaine he used, and I said, "You must have been running like a marathon." He said, "That's the only time I could sit down and read." So do you think he had a little ADHD?
Yeah.
So they find these coping mechanisms to bring peace and harmony to their brain function. It's not the healthiest of things to do, but when you're a kid and you can't verbalize how you're feeling, and unfortunately, when you're a kid, oh, you're fine.
Right.
Oh, you're fine. You don't really feel like that. Oh, you're okay.
fine.
You'll be okay.
You're right. And that's,
Yeah.
we don't realize as adults what we're
Right.
doing to the kids when we do that. And you know what? 95% of the kids could fluff that off.
Yes.
5% could be profoundly
Yes.
sensitive and really take that as a wound, that I'm not being validated. You know, we don't know.
We don't know. And what we don't know in today's world is our 9 and 10-year-olds are way past what any parent gives them any credit for.
I know.
And it's really mind-boggling to me, because when I look at these little babies and then I hear what comes out of their mouths, I'm like,
I know. They're more sophisticated than I was at 25.
oh my gosh.
I know.
So we really need, all these, they have so much access to information. They have so much
Too much access to information.
to things that they cannot possibly process with the intellect that they have at the moment in
Right.
time that they have it.
Correct.
They can spit back the information to you, but they can't comprehend the information and the impact on their psyche and on their body and on their spirit at the moment in time.
Because the last part of the brain to develop is the part of the brain that's able to do just that.
Yes. So when your child comes home and is sharing to you a 9-year-old, 10-year-old problem, for an adult, yeah, it's nothing. But to that child, it's everything.
That's right.
It's everything. And they need to be validated. And, there's so much going on with social media and this poor generation. Being bullied, you name it, it's being done to them. And they don't get an escape.
You know, when I was a kid, if you got bullied, there was a dozen kids in school that knew about it. And now it's on the internet.
Yes.
Everybody knows. Kids that don't even know you are now going to jump in and start bullying you because your picture's posted on Instagram. It's
very, and if you got bullied in school when we were little, right? When you got home, it ended.
It ended. It doesn't end here. It's
It never
24/7. It never
because
ends.
nobody ever has the audacity to take their kids' phone away when they go to sleep. So they're on those things all night long. But when we got home, you could forget the day because you were home and you were safe and you were inside, with your family. They don't get that break.
There is no break. And then take a kid who doesn't have a safe family.
Right.
Who has a parent who's an alcoholic. So there's no safe place for this kid to land.
Exactly right.
School isn't safe, home isn't safe. And we don't have extracurricular activities anymore.
No, we don't.
Schools do have some sports programs.
They definitely still
but
have sports.
If you're not athletically inclined, what options are there where a kid can find a community, find some solid adult guidance
Yes.
or adult role model?
Yes.
What else is there? I mean, the music programs are basically shut down. The community programs are shut down. I mean,
And and from a lot of families on Long Island, doing those extracurricular activities cost money.
Yeah.
And when you have 2, 3, 4 kids,
You can't afford
you
it.
can't necessarily always
Yeah.
afford that.
Right.
So, it's again, and then on the other hand, on Long Island, we have the parents that have their kids in 16 things.
Which is too much, and the
Which
kids
is
can't
too
deal
much.
with the stress of feeling they need to excel at everything.
Because when you lay down on the couch on Saturday morning and you watched Bugs Bunny, my parents let you do that.
Yeah.
Okay, you can chill.
Yeah.
You can relax. You earned it for a certain period of time.
Right.
Just to,
And then, as my dad used to say, all right, time to get up and go out and play in traffic.
Or, well, actually, my parents would say, oh, you have nothing to do? Well, and then everyone
was
scattered.
outside.
Gone.
Yep. Yeah.
We never wanted
It's
to
a
come
different
in, though.
world. We sound like a couple of old ladies.
We do, but you know what? When was the last time, to see kids outside? So when Kim Laube does her program on Shelter Island, when I had the honor of participating in that, and on a Saturday afternoon with children from the ages of 15 to 18, to hear them giggling, to hear them laughing,
Amazing.
to see Frisbee playing, to see guitar playing and singing and doing what kids should be doing. And they all voluntarily gave up their phones, so they didn't care about their phones anymore. So it can be
Amazing.
done. And to hear
Amazing.
that is the music to my
Yeah,
ears.
absolutely.
Just to open, in the summertime when you would hear kids outside playing till it got dark. My kids, that's what they did. You were outside
right.
playing
That's what I did.
all kinds of games. And then when it was dark and it was time to come in, they hated that.
Yeah.
But
It's
it was
true. I
right
remember
to
that.
sleep, right?
That's right.
It was great, just a different time.
I also think that's why kids today tend to be obese. We have a
Yes.
higher rate of obesity and high cholesterol in kids that are under 16, which is insane.
Which is insane.
Because they're not outside. They're sitting in front of the TV.
Yes.
Or they're sitting in a chair on their phones, or the video games. That's not healthy.
It's not healthy for none of us spend enough time outdoors anymore.
Well, that's true. That's very true.
So there's so much serenity in just being in the outdoors. That's, we should be outdoors more.
Okay.
So-
As soon as the snow melts,
I
I think
know.
we need to do that.
I know. And it is, by Friday, it should be 60 degrees. So here
From
on
your
Long
mouth
Island,
to God's ears.
I'm telling you. Thank you so much for coming
Thank
tonight.
you for having me.
The KPC is located in Syosset and Hop. Please reach out, hit me up on Facebook. We'll provide all the numbers. Claudia does the best intensive outpatient program on Long Island. So if you need any other further information that we can get for you and your loved ones on Vivitrol, Suboxone, any kind of help that you may need, please feel free to reach out. We're here to help. We're here to support. Have a very blessed holiday weekend. Happy Passover, happy Easter, and enjoy your families. Good night.
Awesome.